going on, guys? Welcome to Frank's Media and Reviews. In today's video, it is my fourth episode of a video series, the Physical Media Club. In this video series, I get to connect with people in the physical media world, the horror genre, and film reviewers. Today's guest recently celebrated his third year anniversary on YouTube. Through a strong family like community he has built within his channel, he has surpassed 30,000 subscribers. Also, a little fact, although his YouTube channel is horror based, his first love was martial arts, which means he could kick Hobo Myers' ass. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you guys Knight from the Nightwatch.
Hey, what's going on, Frank?
What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Well, I'll tell you this, man. I don't know if I could beat Hobo Myers. He's pretty damn tough. I don't know if I could beat him, but he's definitely an interesting version of Michael Myers. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, maybe that's a topic we'll discuss later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Knight, for coming on to my YouTube channel and the video series. I really appreciate it. How the interview will go is I'll just do some icebreakers, and then we'll just kind of get into your YouTube journey and the interview itself. So,
okay.
My first question, icebreaker question, is what's been your favorite movie experience with your children?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Favorite movie experience with the kids. Well, I will say we've had a few, which I'm happy about because, with kids, sometimes there's not the same connection, and that's not to sound old school, although it kind of does sound old school. But, me and Coriander will watch a movie, especially something that's a favorite of ours. And a lot of times the kids will say, "Oh, that sucks. Why are you watching that?" And we're like, "Man, this is a classic. We loved this when we were growing up," or whatever. But I will say, one of the most fun experiences we had, we went to the theater to see Jordan Peele's Nope. And going to the theater, I felt like they're not going to like this. Jordan Peele, he's very talented, and a lot of his stuff is it's pretty high concept.
Mm-hmm.
So we went, and they were both like, "Yeah, we want to go too." And part of it felt like they just wanted to go, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. So we get there, and I kid you not, man, both of these kids, we've got one that's 10, the other one that is 14. They were quiet as hell watching the movie. They weren't talking, they weren't bored, and they actually got creeped out by it. There are some scenes in it that are a little creepy. And we got done with the movie. They both loved it. And I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" It's like, yeah, it's, I enjoyed the movie too. So did Coriander. But we were like, that's the movie that they kind of, tuned into and
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed. So that was a really fun experience because we had no idea that the kids would enjoy it.
Yeah.
And even to this day, we kind of joke with them about it, saying, "Hey, this movie we want to show you, this could be another Nope." And they laugh. So yeah, that was a fun experience.
That type of moment just kind of brings a tear just thinking about it, like because I've had those experiences. I mean, my first one was Star Wars with my kids, with my girls, so because Star Wars means a lot to me, and so I was like little tear. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Right? I know. Like, you're trying to get them to connect to the things that you love. And,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a couple of things that they've connected with. But when we went to the theater for Nope, I couldn't. It was more because it was such a big surprise. I truly did
Mm-hmm.
not think that they would like that movie, much less love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did. So
That's a great story, man. Heck yeah. What's been your favorite memory with teaching your martial arts, the kung fu and tai chi?
ooh, wow. There's been a lot of those. I will say I'm so lucky to have been able to do that and still do it. And I've connected with so many people. I think one of the coolest things, um, is, I have a couple of students that have been with me for years. One of my students, she started with me when she was a little kid. She was
Mhm.
like 10, 11 years old. Her mom brought her to the class, and she's just this little runt kid, and she was a cool little kid. And now she's 30, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
wow.
seeing her seeing her as a woman, a grown woman now, and she'll come and visit my classes, my school. And the first time she did that, which was, I think it was maybe 3 years ago, she came to visit, and I had some of my young kids there, and she comes in, and I was telling the kids, I'm like, maybe one day you'll be like she is. And the little kids are like, really? And she was showing her moves and all that. So that was really cool because obviously, not only feeling old, but feeling like, hey man, I passed on something to someone and they enjoyed it enough. It meant enough to them
Mhm.
that they would come back to visit me because she lives now she lives like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me.
Oh, okay.
So it was cool, just the connection more than anything else, and having some good memories, good laughs for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
Some blood and sweat and tears.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite memories.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing. Heck,
yeah, man.
well, as I stated earlier, that you just recently celebrated your third year anniversary.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks, man.
So what made you start your YouTube channel?
Ah, yes. Well, this is, it's funny because when when I hear about other people's origin stories, a lot of times it's very, it's cool, it's interesting, at least to me, right? I don't think mine is. Mine was it was a lot of luck and necessity because I started it because I had a lot of time on my hand. And it was during the pandemic, and I had spoken to my brother. Uh, Me and my brother, obviously, we both love movies since we were little boys. So I said to him, you know, you've always talked about. He knew a couple people that did podcasts,
Mhm.
just general podcasts, and we always kind of said, hey, it'd be cool maybe one day to do a YouTube channel because we watched some YouTubers back then. And so the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hand. I was fortunate enough to still be working, but had a lot of time on my hand. So I said to him, I said, maybe we could try that YouTube thing. And he, with his job, working in hospitals and so forth, he didn't have a lot of free time, but he said, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. You should do it. And I said, what? you know, and, at the time, and I'm sure a lot of YouTubers in the beginning feel like this. At the time, I was thinking, man, I don't know nothing about YouTube. I don't know how to do it, what to do, all the tech stuff. And um, so he said, yeah, you should do it. So I decided one day to do it, started the channel, and I said to him, I said, okay, well, let's talk about something. He says, what do you
Yeah.
want to talk about? I said, I don't know. And so I'll never forget one of the first things we did. I don't even know if I still have it, to be honest, but we just put the camera on and we started talking about the Terminator franchise.
Mm.
And we probably recorded, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half of a discussion, and it was fun. I was like, "That's really cool." And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what do we do with it?" I said, "Well, I gotta put it on the channel or something." I just totally had no frigging clue what I
Mhm.
was doing. Um, and then, I kind of figured that out a little bit, and I did a couple of um, discussions I recorded of myself, and I eventually came to the realization that what I wanted to do was to talk about movies and
Mhm.
somehow connect with an audience or like-minded people.
Mhm.
And so we started to kind of just do some live stream type of stuff. And he'd join in whenever he could. And then I realized that there were people out there that enjoyed horror like I do. And I started to do that. And then I roped in Coriander. I said to her, I said, man, you love horror just as much as I do, and just as much as my brother Killian does. I said, we should do this as like a show. Maybe we could do something every week. And she's like, no. And I'm like, why not? She's like, well, I wouldn't be any good at it. I said, I'm not any good at it either. What are you talking about? you know? And she says, and I said, well, look, the one thing we do know is that we love movies. And that was the one thing that we did have and that I did have. And I said, well, I'll figure out all the tech stuff and all of that. I said, all you got to do is just talk if you want. And so, anyways, long story short, I roped her into doing it. And so at one point, we were able to do weekly live streams and stuff like that, just trying to get our feet wet.
Mhm,
And that was really how it started. It was very rough and tumble, and just having the camera on and just talking movies, man. And
mhm,
we were fortunate enough to not only have fun doing it, but um just connecting with people that enjoyed it. And to this day, some of those people, I still have contact with, and
mhm,
even some of the creators from back then I still have contact with. So that was how it started, and one of the coolest parts of it.
mm. How did you come up with your name, the Nightwatch Zone?
Well, it's again, that's not a very cool story, but I was trying to think of a name, you know what I mean, you know how that goes. I was trying to think of
Mhm,
a name, something that I hadn't heard, and something that kind of had a little bit of a catch to it. And night being a nickname,
mm,
that I had for a long time, and I work overnights. So, it kind of just became one of those things, night watch. And
mhm.
then I'm a huge fan of the Twilight Zone. So that was
Oh,
basically that's
there you go. Yeah,
basically how we did it.
yeah.
So yeah.
Um, so one of the things that I wanted to touch base on, I mean, I briefly mentioned it on my little opening introduction to you, and I stated that your community that you've built, it really feels like a family. And so
Mhm,
I am actually one of those people. I was gifted a membership, and then I recently renewed it, and it really feels like you've built like a genuine, open, welcoming like community. And so, I just wanted to say, bravo, because it feels like, I've been watching you for a while, but then ever since like starting this YouTube channel,
mhm,
like 5 months, almost 5 months ago, I've been wanting to connect with other content creators and everything. But
mhm.
like, yeah, your community is just awesome, and
Uh-oh.
so yeah, I think you should just be really proud of that. And then
Oh,
your partners as well, your brother and
mhm.
Coriander, and because like you guys work your ass off, man. You do a lot of live streams, and
Mhm.
multiple times a week. Like,
Yeah.
how in the hell do you balance your personal life with all that content that you're putting out on YouTube?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for saying that about the community, and obviously you're a part of that now, and being more visible in the live chats and stuff like that. And it's really, um, that's what we always wanted, man. It's
Hmm.
crazy. I would have never thought. I was saying this at the 3-year anniversary. I would have never thought we would have been able to have this type of community, as far as just the openness, the connection, the communication. I mean, I talk to
Hmm.
so many people outside of live streaming and YouTube. People will message me or text me or email me, or sometimes I'll get on a call like this,
Hmm.
basically like a Zoom call, not live with an audience with people. And it's so amazing, man. And it's that is the coolest thing about what I've been able to experience on YouTube. And it's really a thanks to all of the folks, including people like you, that make it what it is. Um, but as far as how I'm able to juggle the schedule, it's hard work, bro. It's hard work. I definitely don't sugarcoat that. And when you have kids, obviously you know this as well as I do. It's so challenging because you have to do things in life. You've got family responsibilities, you've got work, you need me time, and the only way I'm able to do it is to have a game plan. You know what I mean? Like even when we were talking about doing this today,
Mhm.
it was cool because I was like, "Oh, okay, man, I can get a chance to talk with you and, get to meet you, on camera face to face."
Mhm.
And but as soon as you said it, I knew exactly what, I had for a schedule.
Mhm.
And so it's fortunate in a way because it gives me a path. Um, and that's really the only way to do it. From the beginning, I said to my brother and to Coriander, I said, "Well, look, we'll do a live stream weekly and let's pick the day that works." And of course, my day has to be priority because I run the stream and I'm the
Mhm.
host. And we just managed to find a way to keep that schedule. I mean, obviously there's a lot of, well, as you know, there's a lot of times I'm solo. And sometimes I'll have people, guest on the panel and stuff like that. But for
Mhm.
me, it's a job. I guess that's where I'm going with it, is that for me, I treat it like it's a job where, I have certain time every week where I know I'm going to be doing YouTube stuff. I'm going to be live streaming on, Mondays and Tuesdays and Fridays. And I give myself time during the week to record, for the videos I upload. And it's just having a game plan, and being very, for me, and that's my type of personality, is I have
Mhm.
to have that schedule. I have to be technical about it. But that's the only way to do it for me, man. If I winged it, and it's funny because when I first started doing YouTube, I had a lot of friends that I made. And of course, you kind of learn through osmosis, right? You kind of
Mhm.
see what other people are doing and kind of hear their um, their stories and so forth. But I had a lot of friends that would kind of wing it. Sometimes they say to me, like, "Hey, Knight, you want to stream sometime this week?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, man. What time?" Well, we'll figure it out, at some point. And like, man, I got to figure it out now, bro. You know what I mean? Um, but that's just me. So but I've been fortunate to have the schedule, and it works, and allows me to do what I do, which it is a lot, but it's
Mhm.
fun. And if it wasn't fun, I definitely wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, because I contacted you, like, a couple months ago
You
doing
did.
this, because for me, my work schedule is very busy, and I have a
Hmm.
family, so hell yeah, I gotta schedule that stuff way in advance.
That's right, man. You do. And if
Yeah.
you can maintain a schedule, and
Mhm.
and have it as a plan, you'll be okay. You'll be okay.
Yeah. Um, what video was, like, your first hit? One that, like, kinda just like, "Oh my god," like, I hit that number, like, that, what video was that?
Well, it's hard to say. There's a couple that come to my mind. When we were, because I was live streaming so much in the beginning. There's a hell of a lot of stuff I've learned. There's no doubt about it. And in the beginning, ignorance is bliss.
Mhm.
So we were live streaming a lot. One of the first things that really, I guess, maybe I'll put it to you this way. One of the first things that kind of came into my mind and said, "Well, hey, this could be something. At least this could be something that is decent and that people might gravitate towards consistently." We
Mhm.
went through the Friday the 13th franchise, which is my favorite horror franchise. Same thing with Killian and Coriander. And I said to them, I said, "Well, let's talk about Friday the 13th." And they were like, "All right." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And so we did these live streams every week where we talked about each film, and people were coming to watch it. And like, the live streaming is so different than uploads for
Mhm.
YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like you get a different type of feedback, you get a different reach. You know,
Mhm.
YouTube definitely favors uploads as far as, the algorithm and so forth.
Mhm.
But with live streaming, you're getting that feedback right there in live time. Plus, you get to connect with
Mhm.
your viewers. So, we were talking about these movies, the Friday 13th films, and we had people that were just like, "Wow, yeah, this is cool," and we like your insight. This is a great show, great discussion. You guys are really, passionate about it. And so that's when I started to realize, okay, we can do this. I can do this, and have at least some type of an audience that will, enjoy it, and it's a little bit of an escape for them. So I would probably say Friday the 13th, the first time, and we've done it a couple times.
Mhm.
But the first time we did it, I think was the first time that it was like, okay, this is a hit. And yeah, that was pretty special.
That is kind of like a good segue to the next question was is how did you decide to make the content, right? Because that you wanted to do for your channel, because yours is definitely different than a lot of the other horror community YouTube channels. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to discuss about that, because yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, again, it's so funny listening to I can't wait to see this, because listening to myself, it sounds so much like we're just like we're throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. But at the same time, maybe that's part of the magic of it, because, a lot of it is the passion for movies and what we want to talk about and present to our viewers. But for me, it's basically what I think would be a fun conversation, and if it's something I'm doing solo, then it's obviously something that is a prime passion. If I'm doing something with Coriander, or me, Coriander, and Killian, it's usually a conversation that we have. It's like, well, what do you guys want to talk about? Let's talk about this, or let's talk about, our favorite films from, this era of
Hmm.
horror or whatever. So that was really how it was in the beginning, and it still is. Of course, in the beginning, it was more like it truly was kind of like just throwing ideas out there. You know what I mean? Now it's much more focused. Like right now, I've probably got stuff planned until like the end of the year easily. So,
Yeah.
because part of it is, as you grow as a YouTuber,
Hmm.
part of it is, I mean, obviously, you want people to enjoy what you do. So
Hmm.
you've got to understand your audience. And, one of the things I've started to get a little bit better at is understanding that, what the audience is interested in. And also, again, live streaming, it's a little bit different than uploads, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So, now, again, going back to that idea of having a plan, we've got things planned a certain way. We've got live stream shows that are specific in a certain way. Like on Tuesday nights, we have our versus stream, our battle world stream. So with that, it's kind of locked into, every week we're gonna do something that's in that vein. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like a group consultation, and then I kind of okay it and say,
Yeah.
okay, let's do that, or hey, this is a good idea, or I'll say no, we got to wait on that. But it's, I will say, that's a fun aspect of doing YouTube as well. It's kind of like, well, what are we going to do for the content? And
Hmm.
that is very fun, especially when you're talking about movies. It's virtually endless, and we're lucky enough. Um, and sometimes it can be a disadvantage too, as far as algorithms speaking. But we speak about more than just horror, because sometimes we'll venture into things that is 80s, maybe
Hmm.
action. And of course, like you were saying earlier, I love martial arts. So every once in a while I can, you know, throw some martial art thing in there, and not as much as I used to, but hopefully I'll be getting back into some more of that content as well.
Um, what? Oh, okay. You know what? Let's talk about it. Or ask it. What is your personal goal for you for your channel this year?
Well, for this year, it's to just to continue to get better as far as growing the community. Um, my schedule has changed a little bit, so the content schedule has kind of changed just a little bit.
Hmm.
Like for instance, there was a time where on Sundays, we would be streaming, and part of it has become um working on other stuff, but also working on some stuff for whether it's the channel members or the Patreon members. So I've shifted that focus a little bit because now having members, I want to try to have stuff that they'll enjoy, and also outlets to connect with them more. So I've
Hmm.
kind of changed my schedule a little bit. So I think for me is to just get better, get the content out there a little bit more. That's been something I've really tried to work on a lot. And the hope is by the time we head into fall, which will be when we'll do, some of our special streams, um, we'll just be that much better, than we were a year ago, which,
Hmm.
a year ago we had, so much fun in the summer and in the fall time. Of course, Halloween time is fun for, all of us that do horror based stuff. So it's just really just trying to get super focused and providing a little bit more value. That's probably the best way to describe it. Providing a little bit more value, especially to our channel members and Patreon
Hmm.
members.
Hmm. Um, how big is your physical media collection?
Well, it's not as big as it used to be. Let me say that. At one point, and it's funny too because when when the pandemic hit and right before I started YouTube, that's when I started to and this sounds so bad. Don't tell Ken at mid-level media, he'll kill me. No, he won't. But I I started to dwindle down my physical media, and a part of it was out of necessity for space.
Hmm.
Um, but at one point, I probably had I'd say at least 1,800 DVDs, between DVDs and Blu-rays.
Wow.
Um, and I used to be so, and and I'm still am proud of it. I don't have that amount anymore. I probably got, you know, 30% of that, 35% of that. But I used to have so many DVDs and Blu-rays, man. Now I've really pared it down to a lot of Blu-rays and box sets and stuff like that. I would probably say if I was to count it, and this is just a figure I'm throwing out, I probably whittled it down to maybe 1,000, maybe 1,100,
Hmm.
DVDs and Blu-rays. DVDs is still probably 50% of what I've got. I'm kind of looking over at it. I've probably got maybe still 50, maybe 40% DVDs, but
Yeah.
um, I've been collecting Blu-rays for a long time and 4Ks, of course, and box sets. But I used to have a really cool connect collection. When I started YouTube early on, there were a lot of people that were big physical media people, and like Ken and obviously people like Phil from Phil's Creepy Videos. And I used to look at their collection and be like, and it's amazing stuff, truly. But I used to think to myself, man, I've got a pretty nice one too, man, but I I've been whittling it down. So, yeah, but it is what it is.
Was there a person who kind of influenced you to be like a collector?
Not really. I mean, I would say it was really self-motivated because I just, just like with YouTube talking about movies, I used to just love having movies so that I could watch them, and I would watch them with my buddies or whoever. And it was just one of those things I just started to do, and once I started to do it, I couldn't really stop. A movie would come out, on a Tuesday, I'd be like, I gotta get it, I gotta get it. Head out to Best Buy or wherever, Um, yeah, it was really a self motivation type of thing.
Mm. Yeah, we just before this, you recently kind of just discussed or talked about like your love a little bit for physical media.
Mm,
Um, did you want to go a little bit in further in that, or just, I mean, because yeah, man, I love my physical media collection, and it's exactly what you were just saying. Is that like content creators like Ken, and I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
that looks amazing, and so
I
yeah.
know. I know. He's got such an awesome collection, and obviously, with physical media seeming to not be as accessible, Walmart is dwindling it down. Best Buy is non-existent. I'll never forget
Mhm,
the first time I went to Best Buy. This was right after Christmas, and they barely had anything out. And I was like, oh, so it's true. You guys are going to be getting rid of physical media. So now, a lot of things that I get, especially special things, it might be from online and stuff like that. I got a couple of my pieces here that are really really cool. Um, I can show them off, I guess. Um, I've got my the Fly collection,
mhm,
which I really love that. It's old school stuff. When I was a kid, um, we used to spend weekends at my grandmother's, and she would have, a lot of old movies on. So the old Fly was on,
mhm,
from the 50s with Vincent Price and all that. And so that was a really cool childhood memory. And of course, as a child, I watched the remake, The Fly, with Jeff Goldblum,
yeah,
with my mom and my dad, and it was such a fantastic memory. And I can remember my mom getting grossed out watching it, but she enjoyed the movie, and so that made the experience even better. And of course, I love the movie,
mhm,
and so anyway, so I had to get that box set. So that's my Fly collection box set. Um, and it's funny because I see that you've got a lot of the same things I've got too, man, which is cool. Um, One of my more recent pickups, actually, I think I did get it through Best Buy. I can't remember, but is I've got my Halloween trilogy 4K
mhm,
box set,
yep, yep,
and it's awesome. It just looks so cool, and oh man, and I'm a fan of the trilogy, which could be a different story. We might get into it. I know how divisive it is to people, but on my channel, it's funny because on my channel, we were saying this the other day on I forgot what live stream it was, but like on my channel, you're gonna hear me talk about, Halloween and Friday and Nightmare and Scream. It's stuff that I grew up on, and it's franchises that I love. So it is
mhm,
what it is. Um, let's see what else. I've also got, and this is just for fun. One of my other favorite movies, obviously you can see behind me, is The Thing,
mm.
and I have one of my McCready figures.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. It's funny because I've never really been a big collector of the figures and stuff like
Mhm,
that. But I saw this. I can't remember where I saw it. Um, it might have been in Target or something. But anyways, but I saw it and I was like, bro, I gotta get that. I love, it's so funny, man. You know how it is. I mean, we're freaking grown men,
yeah.
and it's like we're getting this shit in the excuse my language, but we're
Oh,
getting this
yeah,
stuff, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna pay the money for it. It's just what it is.
that's awesome.
But yeah, man. But I will say probably, and I've said this a bunch of times on my streams too. My prized possession, well, at least one of them. It kind of goes hand in hand with something else I'll say. But and you've got it too, so you you're a real one, bro. Um, I've got my Friday the 13th box set,
Nice.
and this thing is amazing. I have the other box set where it's like the metal
Okay, yep.
container. I've got that one. But this one, holy crap, man. I'm telling you, Scream Factory, they outdid themselves. That thing is so awesome. I it's funny because they're just movies, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But I grew up on Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th was my first horror movie. That's the thing that got me going into this whole thing. So the
Hmm.
franchise, it means so much to me, and having this collection, and it looks so good. So it's one of my prized possessions, and also as a companion, I've got the Crystal Lake Memories hardcover book, which is,
Oh,
it's huge, man. It's
okay.
like I don't have it right here because it's like under a bunch of stuff over there, but that's one of my, and it's funny too because I think, yeah, I got it first. So then I got my brother, I got a copy for my brother for Christmas, and then I got a copy for Coriander for her birthday. So all three of us have a Friday the 13th box set, and all of us have a copy of the Crystal Lake Memories book. And it's cool stuff, especially if you're a Friday the 13th fan. Really well done. A lot of behind the scenes stuff, factoids that I didn't even know about. And I know a lot about those movies.
Yeah.
So it's cool stuff, man. It's really cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's good. I love asking that type of question because obviously each person is different, but
Yeah.
like this listening to like the reason why they have that special piece, and
Mm,
it's really nice to hear, man.
yeah.
You touched upon it earlier, so maybe you that's the answer. But how did you get into the horror genre?
Well, it's funny growing up, movies have always been a big thing for me. My parents love movies. I can remember as a really young kid watching stuff with my dad. He'd be in the living room, with the newspaper in his hand, and he'd have the TV on, and I'm sitting there bothering him, playing on the living room floor. And, I'd look over at the TV and I'm seeing Clint Eastwood, I'm seeing Chuck Norris, I'm
Hmm.
seeing Bruce Lee, Sylvester Stallone. And as a young kid, I started to really connect with these movies and these actors, these filmmakers. And so we would watch movies a lot, and it was really cool too because when I would go over to my grandmother's house, my grandmother and my cousins who would visit there as well, we'd watch movies. We'd watch things like Kung Fu Theater on Saturday afternoons. We'd
Hmm.
watch stuff on syndication, and horror kind of came in um kind of by surprise because at first I was really afraid of horror movies. I had seen horror movies before I got into them, but I never really watched them. I never really liked them because they scared the shit out of me, right? And so I'll never forget, it was during Halloween time, and on TV, they would always marathon,
Hmm.
Friday 13th, Halloween, all of that stuff. And it was a night where I don't know, man, it's hard. I almost wish I could go back to that moment because I was like 7, something like that. And Friday the 13th was on TV. And y- it was at night, of course. So I was like, oh, and I started already get a little nervous. I was like, man, I just got to watch this thing. Let's just get through it. Let me watch it. Because there was a curiosity about it as well.
Hmm.
There was an intrigue about it. And so, long story short, I watched Friday the 13th. I got past the stinger at the end, which scared the crap out of me too, when he jumps out of the water. And when it was done, I was like, man, that was all right. I made it. I watched this thing. And it was the intrigue of it, the adrenaline rush, and obviously that type of stuff that made me say, let me watch some other stuff. And it's like right then and there, it's funny because I say I want to go back to that moment to kind of analyze it, but it's funny, all these years later, decades later, I still remember the feeling, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Hmm.
right then and there, I said, man, I got to watch some other stuff. So I started watching Halloween, and then, obviously Nightmare on Elm Street came out, and Freddy became popular. So I just started to eat it up. We'd go to the video stores, and my mom would say, yeah, you guys can get, a video or two to rent. And, my brother's younger than me, so of course he'd go over to the Disney section and shit like that. I was like, I'm going over to horror. Okay. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And it was so cool, man, because especially back then, as much as, we love, physical media, I think that's why I still have a strong connection with it. Because as a kid, we go to these video stores and that's all you saw
Hmm.
were movies, these all this amazing poster art, for these movies, and kind of the mystery of it. Because back then, now I'm a part of the issue too. As a YouTuber, I'm telling people about all these things and my opinion on whether you should like a movie or not or whatever. But back then you didn't have that. All I had was an image on a box
Mhm.
and a name, and a little bit of a plot synopsis on the back. Um, but that's really what started me on my horror journey, getting through Friday the 13th and then just eating it up.
Yeah, I'm really glad you touched upon that night. Just because there's like a common theme. I'm 41, and so like
Mhm.
I remember like late 80s, early 90s
Yeah.
going into the video store, and just people that I've talked to within the community, like how much they loved that experience, like that maybe the smell of the video store.
Yes.
And it's just like it's just a wonderful experience and a very memorable experience. And so it's just something that's current times, they just don't experience that, because all it is just a click of a button, instead
Yeah.
of the entire experience of going physically touching the VHS, or the DVD or whatever it
Mhm.
was, and just being attracted to, or getting the design on the cover. It got your attention, and you're like,
Mhm.
hell yeah, I want to know more about that. And
Yeah.
that was just a wonderful experience, and I'm really glad you touch it, because there is, you kind of thinking about it, like there's nothing like it in some ways, of that type of memory, and
Mhm.
losing that touch, that sensory, that we used to have. So
Mhm. I agree, and it's too bad because I think that, because I look at the kids, I look at my kids, and I can kind of see why they don't have that type of connection to movies. I mean, and that's not to say all kids don't, but I have friends that have kids as well, and you hear about these things from other people, and because it's so accessible now, you can look on your phone, you can watch a movie, go to Netflix, you got a million things to choose from, and it's almost like it's just a rotating um number of things you can watch. But going to that video store and is basically like shopping, right? You're looking
yep.
around, and all of a sudden there's that one movie, that catches your eye, and it's like, well, why does it catch my eye? Well, I don't know. Is it the artwork? Is it the name of the movie? Is it the plot synopsis? Is it and it was so special, man. Of all the things, as a movie fan, of all the things that I miss the most, that's got to be it, man.
Mm,
As far as that whole process of going to the video store. My parents used to take us there every weekend, you know what I mean, on Fridays, because you gotta
mhm.
you gotta get it over the weekend, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And and they also used it to make sure me and my brother, acted right. If you guys don't act right, you're not gonna get any movies.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. It's funny because it was like freaking Disney World for us.
Mhm.
It's so crazy to think about it like that because of how things are now. But yeah, I truly do miss it. It was such a fun experience, and as much as it's cool to have things at your fingertips, I think we've lost so much,
Mhm.
as far as movie fans and moviegoers.
Yeah.
I really do.
That's wonderful, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Um, so you stated earlier that the Friday the 13th franchise is your favorite franchise, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Is what is okay. What's your favorite movie within that franchise?
Aha. Well, I will I'll throw out the final chapter, Friday 4,
Mhm.
because I think it just has, so many great elements. It's just such a great slasher film. It's a great Friday 13th film. But I always say this, which always sounds like a cop out. I love so many of them, and over the
Mm,
years, like, it kinda they kinda switch places. At one point, I would have said Jason Lives,
mhm.
Friday 6. I have a lot of fun with Friday 7, even though the MPAA really screwed over a lot of it, but I have fun with Friday 7. Friday 3 was one that I really, connected with when I was growing up, and I don't know exactly why, but it just was, and
Mhm.
seeing those images of Richard Brooker's Jason running, after Chris, and everyone's like, "Holy shit, this guy's fast. Can I outrun him?" Um, but yeah, I think Friday 4 is probably, my favorite overall more often than not.
Mhm. Uh, I'm assuming, but what's your favorite horror movie?
That is a really good question. Again, it kind of switches here and there. I think, if you say boom, go, tell me, I'd probably say Halloween 78.
Mhm.
Halloween 78 is such a it's such a special movie to me, man. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it. We watch it every Halloween, of course.
Mhm, mhm.
And obviously on my channel, we talk we talk a lot of Halloween as well. Um the mythology of Michael, the simplicity of what Carpenter did, the camera work by Dean Cundy, the score, Jamie Lee's performance, and obviously Donald Pleasance, who's one of my favorite horror actors, and the
Mhm.
character of Dr. Loomis is my favorite horror character ever.
Mm.
It just has a special place for me, but there are times when people ask me that, and I'll say, obviously Carpenter's The Thing. I love The Shining. I love Alien. But usually I would say if I have to pick just one, I'd probably say Halloween 78.
Mhm. My favorite movie and favorite villain is Candyman. I
Ooh,
I
yeah.
simply love Candyman. I remember when I was a kid, um, listening to my mom and my uncle just like watching the movie, and I was like,
Mm.
what's that?" It sounds interesting. Sneaking downstairs, and then like,
Yeah.
you know, watching little bits and pieces, and then getting caught, and then they just said, basically, "Come on down," and
Yeah.
I just, no pun intended, like I was just hooked. Like I just loved that movie. I
Mm.
loved later on just like what the movie means, because there's so many different layers
Yeah.
to that movie. um so with that being said, um what do you think of the race representation? Like, how do you think, sorry, how do you think the race representation has evolved within the horror genre since you were a kid?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think there's been some things that have shown good progress, but on the other hand, it's funny because I was just talking about this with one of my buddies about a month ago. But on the other hand, it seems like it hasn't had enough progress. And you know, Tony Todd, who was fantastic in Candyman. Candyman's one of my favorite films too.
Hmm.
It always has been. And I saw him talk about these types of things and how he had a lot of hopes for how things would kind of move forward after Candyman, for his own career and also for the genre, and how those things didn't necessarily go the way he wanted.
Hmm.
I do think that there's a lot more opportunities, for filmmakers and also actors of color and so forth. Um, but it seems like it should be further along.
Hmm.
It really does. Because growing up, Candyman meant so much to me as a kid. I can remember going to school and we'd be talking about Candyman. Oh my God, you see that movie Candyman? And oh my
Hmm.
God. And it was such a special thing because he was a representation of us. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Um, and we didn't have a lot of other examples like Candyman. We
Hmm.
had some here and there, and that was great, but not to the level that you would have thought it would have gone. I mean, now um, it's funny because we're talking about one of our favorite experiences. I referenced
Hmm.
Jordan Peele's Nope,
Hmm.
and now having filmmakers like Jordan Peele, who and there's tons others. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying, but he's so high profile now. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I mean, he just from what I heard, he just had a meeting with Marvel,
I
because
know, yeah, I heard about that.
it's like, you've arrived if Disney's calling you up to
Yeah.
have a meeting. So, but now having someone like him being so much more high profile and having bigger reach. I mean, he helped Dev Patel with Monkey Man, to kind of get that off the ground
Mhm.
and going.
Mhm.
So it's cool to see people behind the scenes with some access and some leverage like him, and obviously his movies, and all the talent that he's been able to give a platform to.
Mhm.
So for me, I hope that that can continue and keep moving forward,
Mhm.
because again, Candyman was such a cool moment, but we're talking 1992, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and especially on my channel, we talk a lot about old school movies and about horror icons and so forth. And Candyman is one of the few black icons, that has got that level of profile,
Mhm.
and recognizable. So hopefully that will continue, and we can get some others that will be able to be as recognizable,
Mhm.
as a Candyman or a Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers. That's the hope.
Yeah, again, I mean, I don't know how often you get asked that type of question, but, like, for me, I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican American, and so, like, there's hardly anything.
That's true.
And like the only damn thing that I can think of that's just pretty recent was is Blue Beetle. But like besides
Hmm.
that, there's like that trope of like,
Yep.
of a servant and like all this
Yep.
other like low
Side
level,
character.
yeah, side character, and
Hmm.
so I honestly just wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on it because I think that just needs to be talked about just a little bit more.
Yeah,
Um,
man, it's true. I mean, and it really is. It's an interesting conversation, and I think and especially for a lot of creators, kind of in our communities, that are creators of color. I think it's a conversation that should happen,
mhm,
and hopefully in our content or streams or whatever, we can have other people chime in on that and think about it a little bit too, because I've had conversations with some other folks, and we've had these type of discussions, and you can kind of see the light bulb turn on for people a little bit and
mhm,
say, yeah, you're right, there isn't enough of this or that. And it's not to say that we don't have any, because we do here and there. But as far as that profile, that bigger profile, that's what I want to see more of. Like I just saw Ashana Knight Shyamalan's The Watchers,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so it's nice to see her getting her directorial debut out there, and it's a great cast. But Georgina Campbell is in it, from Barbarian,
Mm,
and it was nice seeing her have some other opportunities that's visible. I mean, she's
mhm,
obviously done other work, but you're talking about a movie that's produced by M. Night Shyamalan, so that's
mhm.
high profile, regardless of what people may think of the film. So
Yeah.
it's just nice to see more visibility, more opportunity.
Yeah, because like that shit's important, man.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice because you touched upon it earlier. Like it's in some ways, you're seeing in some ways like yourself up in the
That's right.
screen. I mean, that's why Black Panther was so damn popular. One, because it's a damn good, it's a very good movie, but
Hmm.
it is just that representation. Like
Yeah.
it truly does matter. And so, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks. I again, I just wanted to touch upon it because yeah, that type of topic or whatever is maybe just not discussed. It's not discussed more, but it's a sensitive topic. Maybe people are too afraid to even talk about. Give it some
Right.
little light. So
Yeah, man, I
thanks, man.
appreciate you asking it. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I'll go back to your little horse. I know that's a little odd segue now, but um, what are the 5 horror films that you would recommend that are your favorites?
Oh, man. Oh, wow. Oh, 5 horror films I would recommend. Oh, man, that's so tough. Uh, well, and I'll say that this could change at any time.
Mhm,
Um, but obviously I'd throw Halloween in there, Halloween 78. Um, if I'm going for variety,
mhm,
I would say also, oh wow, this is, I gotta throw a Friday the 13th in there. So I throw Friday 13th 4 because it kind of gives you that whole 80s, slasher vibe. Kind of what made the franchise what it is. I'd throw that in there. I'd throw in one of my favorite films, and I know sometimes people get caught up on it as far as whether it's actually horror or not. But as a kid, it meant a lot to me, and still does. Is The Silence of the Lambs? I love that movie
hell yeah, yeah.
so much. Bro, when I saw that movie, not to rant, but when I saw that movie with my mom, I still remember it. She was like holding my hand. We're sitting there on the couch. It was late at night, and she's like gripping the shit out of my hand, and she's so into it, and that was a special point for me too, because at that point I had been a horror fan. I loved horror, watched horror, a lot of
Mhm,
the old school 80s stuff. But now I was seeing things that were also, what I guess you could call it the gray area of thriller,
mhm,
thriller horror based, but the acting, the acting,
mhm.
bro, to this day, so this is good for any type of trivia. My favorite actor is Anthony Hopkins. He's just, and it's because of this movie, like I
Mhm.
just gravitated towards that character of Lecter and his performance, his intensity. And same thing with Jodie Foster. She's absolutely one of my favorite actresses, period. And so anyways, I connected with that movie big time. So I would recommend that. I would recommend, oh man, this is a good question. I didn't even think of something like this to be asked. I would recommend, let me go out of the box a little bit more. I would recommend, well, I gotta recommend Scream. I was just thinking about all the different types of horror movies I love. Scream 96 is very special. I'm a
Mhm,
huge Wes Craven fan, and that movie was able to be a good horror movie, a good mystery, and it was very accessible.
mhm.
You could have people that would say, "Oh, well, I don't like horror movies," but they could enjoy something like Scream. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's such an entertaining movie. It's fun and it's memorable, and that's why it's still popular to this day.
Mhm,
So I'd recommend Scream. Um, and lastly, I would throw in I throw in The Conjuring. The Conjuring is one of those movies, in the last, 15 years that to me, has really put respect on horror. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like James Wan making a movie that could be scary, but yet very well made with great acting. And it's kind of like it's kind of brought horror to a level where you have so many great actors that are getting into horror, and I'm not saying they're doing it because of it, but I think The Conjuring was a special moment in horror because at that time, we had things like Final Destination and the Saw films and Paranormal Activity, but they were kind of on the downside of their popularity. And then, James Wan does Insidious, and then he
mhm,
does The Conjuring, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, you can do horror movies that kind of have an old school feel,
mhm,
but it's modern. You can have a haunted house story that actually has some creepy moments, some scary moments, but you have
mhm.
a great story focused on characters and their development. That whole idea of Ed and Lorraine, played by Vera and
Patrick Wilson.
Patrick,
Yeah.
they're so good, and their chemistry, and
Mhm,
as much as it's a horror film, it's a movie about family. And that was kind of cool to see that in horror, and it's kind of trickled since then as far as the movies that come out and so forth. So yeah, I would say
mhm.
that'd be the fifth movie I'd recommend.
Yeah, it's for me, like, it's hard to not name, like, the typical movies
Right.
because they're so iconic, they're classics. Like
Mhm.
for me, what you just said, you want to recommend kind of like get outside of the box, and
Mhm.
so like ones that I like recommend are they're classics within our community, but like Return of the Living Dead,
Yeah.
Demons, I mean by Bava, and so like
Mhm.
it's but like you always kind of come back to like those Halloween and maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those
Yeah.
kind of staples,
Yeah.
are iconic movies, and they're iconic and they're staples for a damn reason.
Right. Exactly, that's the thing, is like there's a
Yeah.
reason that they have their popularity. It doesn't mean that everyone's gonna love them,
Mhm.
but you gotta give them credit because especially like, obviously when we were growing up, I mean, horror movies, man, they were like you could make a horror movie and just throw it out there and but what's going to have longevity? What's going to make
Mhm.
a mark, and those type of films like TCM and Return of the Living Dead and so forth.
Or even the movies behind you, like Jaws, that is
Yes.
like a perfect movie. I mean,
Yes. I
that
love Jaws.
yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, yeah,
No.
I mean, it's just like it's iconic. The cinematography, the
Oh,
acting. I mean, like
yeah, man.
literally everything about it is just it's yeah, it's perfect.
Jaws Jaws is so good. We just did the stream the other night. We were doing, the best shark movie, and we
Yep.
intentionally said, "We can't have Jaws in the running
Mhm.
because it's gonna win easily,"
Mhm.
and,
Yeah.
but that's like you just said, that's how great it is, and, some people, just like with Silence of the Lambs, some people say, "Well, Jaws isn't horror." Look, when I was a kid, that movie scared the crap out of me,
Yeah.
okay? Um, but it's such a well done movie. The characters, just thinking about it, man, puts a smile on my face
Mhm.
and I feel like, man, I should watch it. And I've been watching that movie since I was a little kid, so, uh, but they're classics for a reason, like you said.
Yeah. Good segue is what do you think the current state of the horror genre like today? Like what do you think about it?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think there's some good stuff out there. And we do have some great filmmakers right now. I mentioned James Wan, I mentioned Jordan Peele. I like Robert Eggers. I like Mike Flanagan
Mhm.
is absolutely amazing. And Flanagan doesn't get enough flowers, bro. I mean,
Mhm.
he's just got such a great style. I love his Netflix shows, Haunting of
Mhm.
Hill House, Midnight Mass, The Midnight uh, Club, um, Oculus, Doctor Sleep, which
Mhm.
is probably one of the most underappreciated sequels to a classic like The
Yep.
Shining of all time. I love Mike Flanagan. Who else? Scott Derrickson. In other words, there's a lot of great filmmakers out right now and within the last decade, and I think that's a good thing because they obviously have talent, and hopefully they're gonna continue to take horror in a very interesting direction.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the state of horror, it's good. I wanna see it continue to grow, and as much as I love these classics and these franchises and the things that we grew up on, and there's a reason that they're so great, I wanna continue to try to move to a point where we create new classics, some new icons,
Mhm.
we can have some new Jamie Lee Curtises and Nev Campbells and Matthew Lillards and all of these other great actors from back in the day. And I'm hoping that's where it goes. I know that obviously everything is a business, so that's why you see a lot of these franchises, kind of cycling,
Mhm.
around and around and around. And some people aren't big fans of that, and some people are. I'm a fan of it if it's done right. We just got off of the Halloween trilogy, and some people they maybe enjoyed it or maybe they didn't, or they're thinking, why they keep doing Halloween movies? Well, that's because it's got a fan base.
Mhm.
People love those movies. People love Michael Myers. Um, and as much as sometimes you get into the whole idea of sequelitis, I'm I'm still happy that these franchises are around because for me, especially with this trilogy, we got to have, a lot of great Michael Myers moments. I think 2018 was really, really good, and we got to have someone in James Jude Courtney portraying Michael Myers, who, I mean, he's one of the best to ever do it. He
Mhm.
really is, and we wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if we didn't have the sequelitis. So, I'm okay with it if it's done right, and sometimes it isn't, but I don't mind them taking the chance, because sometimes you get some good stuff. You really do.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I asked that is because, I mean, let's just face it, like, recently, there's been some terrible movies, and so, like,
Mm,
people, I mean, Blumhouse used to be like a, when you see that, you used to, like, be happy. Um,
yes.
some because they had some phenomenal movies, like, some people forget, like, Invisible Man was,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very good movie.
Mhm.
However, I mean, because Imaginary, Night
Yep.
Swim, I mean, and then of course like other movies like The Exorcist Believer. So,
Yeah.
like just recently, just the horror genre, like there's been some not so great movies, and so like I'm glad you pointed out some positives, like during this modern era, time, and
Mhm.
hopefully it'll get a little bit better. And like you just said, Mike Flanagan is doing
Mm.
the new Exorcist franchise, and so yeah, exactly.
Hey, look, this is the best shot we got to
Yeah,
get a good Exorcist film. If this doesn't work, it's over, bro. It's
yeah.
over, I mean, and I love The Exorcist, and The Exorcist is another one of those films, for me
Hmm.
as a kid, it's a fantastic film, and, rest in peace to William Friedkin. He did a great job with that movie, but they just haven't been able to really capture that magic. I mean, Exorcist 3 was really good. I love Exorcist
Hmm.
3. I'm a huge fan of that, and what George C. Scott did with that. But right now, they're trying to tread water, man, and hopefully Mike Flanagan can take it home. Because if he can't, then I just think The Exorcist needs to rest for a long, long
Hmm.
time. You know what I'm saying? But Flanagan is so talented, as long as the studio doesn't, mess around, which usually Blumhouse, that is one of the cool things about Blumhouse, is they let their talent kind of do what they want to
The
do.
creativity, yeah.
Yes, yes. So Flanagan has such a great record. I love
Hmm.
all of his work, and I said it when the news came out. Um, to me, unless something really wacky happens,
Hmm.
I can almost guarantee this movie is at least gonna be decent, good. You know what I mean? Hopefully, it'll be really good. Maybe it won't, but, he's just so good as a filmmaker, I can't imagine that it's gonna suck. I just
Yeah,
can't. Yeah.
especially since they spent $400 million on
Woo! That's right, man. Holy moly. That's
it.
crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're almost done. One other thing within the horror genre is there a horror movie that you just refuse to see, or maybe just won't ever see again?
Um, Now do you mean because it's so bad or maybe because it's so
No, like for
controversial?
me, I just won't see Cannibal Holocaust. Like
Mhm.
I just refuse to. I don't want to see that, and so
Yeah.
that's just me. And so
Yeah.
other people, that's like one of their favorite, movies and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so, it obviously it just depends on the individual. So yeah, is there a
Yeah.
movie that, you know
Well, I've been lucky enough to get, especially through the channel. That's another cool thing about doing YouTube is you obviously open yourself up to a lot of different stuff you've maybe never seen.
Mhm.
And, I've gotten really big, much more than I was younger, into a lot of foreign horror. And there's so much great stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, stuff that needs to be talked about more, myself included as a creator. Um, but it's hard to say. I can tell you this. There's a movie called Inside
I got it.
that,
Yeah, and Second Sight. Yeah, man.
whoo, man, I'm telling you. And I did watch it twice because we talked about it on our slasher movie club series. And holy crap, I mean, and it's not that it's like super gross. It's definitely not like at the level of like Cannibal Holocaust, which I've only seen once. So I guess that's a good answer too. Cannibal Holocaust might be one, but Inside is an example of a film that I thought it's a really good movie. You know, it's really well done
Mhm.
and everything about it, the story, the intensity, and all of that. But it's not a movie that I say to myself, "Hey, let's watch Inside tonight." You know, it's just it's just like, holy crap, you know, it's like
Yeah.
it's so intense, but it's a great movie, you know, it's one of those
Mhm.
movies that even when we talked about it on the series, I recommended it, you know, and as like, man, you gotta check it out. Because I do think horror, especially for a lot of us in at least in my community, or, you know, as far
Mhm.
as my audience, you know, I try to, as much as possible, um, you know, open people up
Mhm.
to other things. Like, yeah, we're gonna talk about the old school, you know, stuff. I call it the Trinity, you know, Freddie, Michael, Jason. We're gonna talk about new stuff, but there's so much other stuff like that's over to the side, like with you know foreign
Mhm.
horror, you know Bava and so many other great filmmakers, and so I try to open people up to that Fulci, you know,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of great stuff out there, but sometimes, you know, it might be something that you only watch once
Mhm.
and you're done. And doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's just, you know, it's just like, wow, it's a lot to take in. But Inside would probably be a movie I throw out there. Cannibal Holocaust as well, definitely.
Yeah, sorry, I have to ask. I have to ask. You just touched upon it. Foreign horror is my jam. I fucking love it, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
the movie that opened my eyes to it was Old Boy. Just like
Ooh,
Old Boy is just a masterpiece to me, and it
yeah,
just opened my eyes of how wonderful a story can be, the acting, and just so many movies that I didn't know existed overseas.
right.
And like one of my favorites is Audition, like
Mm.
Raw, like so. What is your favorite foreign film?
Ooh, oh man. All right, I gotta think about this because I know I probably got some people that say you better say the right one. Um, because you know, I preach about it so much.
Mhm,
Um, Definitely got to preach more about it too, because like you said, it's great stuff. I would probably say, oh man, this is tough. Um, wow, oof. I love The Beyond by Fulci. You know,
mhm.
one of his Gates of Hell trilogy films. It's so freaking crazy. Like it makes no fucking sense.
Dude, it doesn't.
It doesn't, but it's a movie that and this is what I love about movies too, man. And it's not just horror, but of course, horror is my favorite genre, and it's special in that way because it can do this. But a movie like The Beyond, it just pulls you in, you know, to this world, you know. And with foreign horror, what's so cool about it and it's probably because it is foreign, you know, like we see things we don't always every day see,
Mhm,
that we see in the States. And also the way the characters act and their connections and obviously, especially if you're watching it and it's a foreign language and you're reading the subtitles or whatever, it just feels like you're immersed in it even more. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? So the Beyond is a favorite of mine from Fulci. Um, God, I love so many things. Deep Red is great. Suspiria, um, Old Boy, definitely, man. First time I saw Old Boy, I my jaw dropped. I was like, "What? Are you you know?" And I love that stuff, man, because you know what they're able to do overseas is, you know, take all of these common threads that is in horror and storytelling. And again, they turn it just a little bit, and sometimes a lot,
Mhm,
and it
mhm.
makes it such an interesting experience. And I just think that and I can say this for my audience, and I'm not making fun of my audience, but they know because I tell them all the time, "We gotta keep an open mind and watch some other shit, watch some foreign horror." But it's true, man, because, through the channel, I really opened up my um eyes on foreign horror. I
Mhm.
watched it when I was a kid. Sometimes me and my buddies would get bootlegs of stuff from overseas and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So it was cool. But once I started talking on YouTube and we started to kind of dive deeper into things, and Coriander is so well versed in foreign horror, and it was one of the coolest things about her. And I said to her, I remember saying this, I said, we should do a series where we get into a lot of the underappreciated stuff, the
Mhm.
foreign stuff. And so we did that for a long time, and we came across a lot of movies that I had either not seen before or hadn't seen since I was a kid. You just kind of lose touch of some of these things. But anyways, this is a long-winded answer, but The Beyond is definitely one I would say is one of my favorite foreign horror films and one that I'd recommend. But almost anything from, a lot of those filmmakers like Bava or Fulci, um, it's just like it's gold, man. It's gold. It takes you into a different world, and I absolutely love Suspiria. It's like it's awesome stuff, man. Oh, oh, I can't hear you.
A few moments later.
In case anyone was wondering, we had some technical difficulties. I don't know what just happened, but Knight is a very patient man. So thank you, Knight.
No
Two,
problem.
two, two questions. Uh, Next question is, what has been the best advice someone has given you as for as a content creator?
I would say, wow, that's a really good question. I will say it's basically, I mean, this isn't word for word, but it's basically have fun, doing this because there's going to be so many ups and downs, and it's very true. And as much as this has been a fun thing for me and it's been an absolute blessing, there's been a lot of challenges. So I think probably the best advice I've had is to just be yourself and have fun,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, that's what you hang your hat on. It's like, why do you do this? Do you do it to connect with people? Do you do it to create a community? Do you do it because it's a job for you or a business or whatever? That's all fine and dandy, but it's got to be fun. You got to have some type of investment that way in order for it to be sustainable, and also to get something really special out of it. So I would say that's probably the most important advice I've gotten from and of course there's a lot of great mentors out there. So and I thank them for passing that on, because sometimes you lose track of that as far
Hmm.
as have fun with it,
Hmm.
because it can be such a grind. So that would be probably the thing I would pass on to other people, is just try to have fun, whatever you're doing, whatever you set up for yourself, schedule wise or goal wise or whatever. Just try to have fun, enjoy it, because that's what's really important.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was, you just touch upon the next question, which was, advice you would give to content creators or, new content creators. So,
Yeah, yeah, because without that, man, you can get lost. I said this once to um a friend. YouTubing, being a content creator, it's almost like you're in a boxing match. Stuff always goes back to martial arts and stuff for me, but it's kind of like you're in this boxing match where you it's endless rounds, right? And you don't have the advantage, and you're basically just taking the hits. And the question is, how long can you continue to just take those hits and keep standing up? It's kind of like a Rocky thing too, which I love Rocky, but that is what it is. You just have to take all that comes at you, the good and the not so good. And whether that be, tough times or, stress in life can sometimes influence what you do, um, things that are going on with YouTube or all that. So it's tough, but if you have fun,
hmm.
if you have fun doing it and it's a passion that you have, that will allow you to continue. And I know that it's true for me. It's just like the one thing that I've been able to hold on to is that I just love friggin' talking about movies,
Hmm.
and this is an outlet to do that. however much I want to do. So that's what makes it fun for me.
Wonderful answers. Thank you. Thank you, Knight, so much for joining my little video series.
Yeah.
And guys, yeah, follow Knight, y'all. All his links will be down in the description video or description section. Thank you to all of my tier members. Thank you to John from Let's Talk Entertainment. And guys, yeah, I love making these type of video series. And Knight, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so
Same here,
much.
man.
So
Thank you, man. I appreciate the invite.
yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Have a good one.